Whose life are you really living? No, really. Stop for a moment and ask yourself, every decision you've made, every role you've played, every version of yourself you've shaped, was it you or was it a mask? We live in invisible cages, not made of bars or chains, but of expectation. From the moment we're born, the world begins to shape us. Parents, teachers, lovers, society, they hand us masks. Wear this, they say. This is how you'll be accepted. This is how you'll be loved. And so we obey, silently, eagerly, desperately, because rejection feels like death. Carl Jung called it the persona, the false self we build to survive. A carefully assembled mask that hides our wounds, our longings, our truth. But here's the thing they never told you. Every time you choose to please others at the expense of yourself, a small part of you dies, and slowly, silently, you begin to disappear, until one day you wake up and realize you don't know who you are anymore. That moment, that ache, that's the soul, whispering through the cracks of the mask, and it's asking you to choose. They told you it was selfish to choose yourself, that it was wrong to say no, dangerous to walk away, unforgivable to put your needs above theirs. But what if they were wrong? What if choosing yourself isn't selfish, but sacred? In a world that thrives on obedience, choosing yourself is an act of rebellion, but not the loud kind. Not fists in the air or fire in the streets. It's quieter, deeper. It happens when you stop betraying your truth to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. Lao Tzu once said, "When I let go of who I am, I become what I might be." Choosing yourself isn't arrogance. It's alignment. It's saying, I will no longer trade my peace for approval, my path for permission. And it terrifies them. Not because it's wrong, but because it's free. The world doesn't fear selfish people. It fears sovereign ones, because the moment you return to yourself being, you become untouchable. There comes a day, not marked on any calendar, not recognized by anyone else, but you'll feel it. The day you've had enough. The day your soul claws its way to the surface and screams, no more, no more shrinking, no more pleasing, no more pretending. Maybe it comes after heartbreak. Maybe it comes in silence. Maybe it comes with tears. But it comes, and when it does, it won't feel like empowerment. It'll feel like death, because a part of you is dying, the mask, the performance, the lie. And that death, it's sacred, like Prometheus stealing fire from the gods. You take back what was always yours, your power, your truth, your voice. It's terrifying. It's messy, but it's real. It's the first breath of freedom after years of drowning. The moment you choose yourself, the world as you knew it begins to collapse. But so does the prison. After the fire, there is silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but of something ancient being reborn. You won't know who you are at first. You'll feel lost, disoriented, alone, but don't rush it. This is the sacred pause, the space where the real you begins to stir, not from force, not from control, but from remembering. The mystics knew this place. Rumi called it the field beyond. Right and wrong. Meister Eckhart called it the ground of the soul. Here you unlearn everything that was never yours. You no longer chase. You no longer perform. You no longer explain. You simply be. The world may call it stillness, but inside a storm of truth is rearranging everything. And from that quiet center, something begins to emerge. Not a version of you, but you, the self that was buried beneath. Layers of fear, guilt, and roles you were never meant to play. And for the first time, your life begins to reflect you, not who they needed you to be, but who you've always been. And then something strange begins to happen. The world shifts, not overnight, not loudly, but subtly, mysteriously. People who once drained you disappear. Opportunities you once feared and appear. It's not magic, it's alignment. When you stop abandoning yourself, life stops abandoning you. Reality becomes a mirror, not of who you pretended to be, but of who you truly are. Quantum theory hints at this. Consciousness affects matter. Observation shapes outcome, but the mystics already knew, as within, so without. When you return to yourself, the world returns to you. Not because everything outside has changed, but because you have. And the universe responds. But here's the twist, the most mind-bending part of it all. You never had to become anything. You were never broken. Never behind, never lost. You were simply disconnected. Disconnected from your truth, your soul, your source. All that searching, all that striving, it was never about becoming someone new. It was about remembering someone ancient, you. The self, before the masks, before the fear, before the world told you who to be, that self. Still here, still waiting. Choosing yourself doesn't create something new. It reveals what was always there. What do you do with this knowing? You don't need to shout it. You don't need to prove it. You simply live it. Each choice you make, a quiet declaration. I choose me, not from ego, but from essence. Not to separate, but to return. This is not the end of the journey. It's the return to the beginning. The place where truth lives, where masks fall, where life begins again. So now, the question isn't, will the world change when you choose yourself? The real question is, are you ready for it to? What if I told you, you've never actually made a choice, not really? Not in the way that echoes from the deepest chambers of your being, not in the way that cracks through illusion like lightning in a silent sky. From the moment you were born, something began. A silent shaping. Your name was given before you could speak, your values taught before you could think, your fears inherited like old furniture in a house you never built. They told you to be kind, but not too bold, to dream, but not too far, to be yourself but only within the lines. And so you learned the dance, smile when it's expected, nod when it's safe, choose what won't disappoint the people you love. Or fear. But here's the paradox, the world applauds conformity and punishes authenticity, until one day it doesn't. Until one day it waits for you to wake up, to ask, whose life have I been living? Whose voice is this in my head when I make decisions? Is this desire mine or borrowed? Could it be? That I've spent years performing a version of myself, not living as one? The unseen cage isn't made of steel. It's made of stories. Stories about who you should be, who you're allowed to be, and what happens if you dare to step outside the script. Existentialists called it bad faith, the tragedy of living a life you didn't author. Mystics call it Maya, the veil of illusion that keeps you asleep. But call it whatever you want. You'll feel it. That quiet ache, the one that shows. Up at 2 a.m., the one that asks, what if everything you've called Yukai Calm is just a costume? And underneath there waits someone you've never met but always felt. The day you choose yourself is the day you begin to remember. It doesn't always come as thunder. Sometimes the call to awaken arrives softly. A faint crack in the rhythm of your life. A job you once loved becomes a prison. A relationship that once fit begins to itch at the soul. Or maybe you're just staring at the ceiling one night, wondering why it all feels like a lie. This is the moment of fracture, a sacred rupture, where something inside, you ancient and eternal, begins to whisper, there's more than this. You were meant for more, not more success, more truth. Psychologist Carl Jung called it the shadow, the parts of ourselves we've buried to survive. The poet Rumi called it the guest house, every emotion, every unrest, knocking on the door with a message. And Socrates, he listened to a voice, his demon, a kind of inner knowing that defied logic but never lied. This fracture is not failure. It is the first breath of your becoming, the soul's rebellion against silence. But here's the catch. When this call comes. It doesn't scream, it waits. Patient, persistent, until you either numb it or answer it, and if you answer, you don't just hear the truth, you feel it. You break open, and for the first time, you start asking the questions no one ever taught you. How to ask. To choose yourself is not to shout, "I'm different," into the void. It is to whisper, "I am," into the bones of your being, and finally believe it. This isn't selfishness. This isn't ego. It's the exact opposite. Ego is the mask you wear to be accepted. Choosing yourself is removing it, even if the world no longer claps when you do. What does it mean, truly? It means you stop apologizing for what makes you alive. It means you say yes only when your soul says yes. It means disappointing others, so you stop disappointing yourself. It means sitting in silence long enough to hear the voice beneath the noise. Not the voice of your culture or your trauma or your fear, but the voice that has waited quietly behind every decision you were too afraid to make. The philosopher Kierkegaard said, "The greatest hazard of all, losing one's self, can occur very quietly in the world, as if it were nothing at all. Choosing yourself means choosing what's real, even if it costs everything unreal. It's stepping off the path you were handed and into the wilderness of the unknown. And you know what happens there. You find the you that was never lost has only hidden. You don't become someone new, you remember someone ancient, someone whole, someone true. It's terrifying. It's electrifying. It's liberation with teeth. And it changes everything. Because once you've tasted what's real, you can't go back to living asleep."